All right, thanks, Katie. Welcome, everybody. Happy signing day. Happy holidays. Another great signing day in the books. Every one of them's unique in their own way, and this one, certainly was, I guess, a little bit as well. Though, very proud of, I think, the way this one came together. Certainly given some of the staff changes that have happened, especially, that provided some real challenges and also opportunities here in the last several weeks to bring this class together. And I think, specifically, certainly on the defensive side of the ball, two of the areas we really targeted, the defensive front and the secondary, where it was really important to close strong there, and we did that. We're able to get on some targets here late and land some guys that we think were, really key to the future of this program, to the turnaround defensively, as obviously we step into a new philosophy, a new scheme, new coaches, really all of the above. And so really proud of the way that the guys finished there, very proud of the way the class finished. Especially excited about the offensive line as well. That was it's been a real focus point. We come in here year one and there's not an offensive lineman in the class, and so you knew that we said it, I think, right when I got here, the next few years of offensive line recruiting are going to be really, really important. And we've been pleased with the group that's been here this last year, and then excited to add this new group kind of on top of them. And as you look just from a big picture program development, the lines of scrimmage, obviously we all know are so critical to playing great football, and stacking that talent year after year and being able to develop that talent is so important. And so when I look at the class right now today, there's a lot that I'm really excited about, but what we were able to do on the two fronts, I think, was really, really critical and really, really important. And to add another great O-line class, to add the size defensively that we were able to add. I know we've talked a lot about being able to get bigger on the front, being a more physically dominant front. Certainly going to be very important as we move forward with Coach Lynn and this coaching staff to be able to establish and develop that. The secondary was obviously a really big key there as well. And we've got a great class so far and a few other things that left to happen there. But certainly another piece that when you look at what we've had, what we've lost, and what we need to replenish and where we need to get better, we knew that was going to be really key as well. And so excited about the class. The high school recruiting, as we all know, has continued to change and evolve over the last several years. Our understanding of being at USC now for a couple of years and what we know it's going to take to continue to elevate our program has certainly evolved as well. And I think one thing, if I were to give one comment maybe about this class, or if I were to sum it up in one way, the commitment level of these guys to understand the opportunity that we all have here at a place like USC, the opportunity to help bring this program back to where we all want it to be, is shared across this class. I mean, you could really feel that with all of the guys. I mean, really throughout the process. So many of these guys never wavered. So many of these guys never blinked, and they understand really what this means. And I think that's really special. And it's something that we, honestly, as time has gone on more and more here in the last few years, we have prioritized that just each year, I think, a little bit more, because I think it matters. Because what happens with that is, listen, the guy that wavers on signing day is going to waver when something doesn't go his way here. He's going to waver when he's not the starter as a true freshman coming right out. He's going to waver, when somebody on the outside tells him that he should, look somewhere else. The guys that don't waver and that have a passion for being here, they're going to hang in there through the ups and downs. They're going to develop, and then you're going to look up, and down the line, they're going to turn into really good players, and a lot of them much sooner rather than later. And there's a lot of examples of that right now on our football team. A lot of examples of guys that in this bowl game are getting ready to play a much different role than they've ever had, and it's exciting. It's energizing to the program. You can just feel that. And I think as we go forward, certainly in terms of the high school recruiting, that I just don't think you can put a big enough value. Really, you can't stress the importance of that enough. In this class, if I were to sum it up in one way, there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of ability, but these guys are all dying to be USC Trojans. And so very, very proud of that. excited to talk about these groups individually, these guys individually, but a great day. There's still certainly a lot left to go. There will be more signings of high school players, and then obviously there's a handful of positions that we're still being pretty active in the transfer portal, and will continue to be as all this plays out. So obviously years ago this used to be kind of the end of things for a while. It feels like this is just in some ways kind of the middle point or a point in the road that's going to continue on here through the next several weeks and months, and one that we will continue to be aggressive in to add to this roster, both for next season and the upcoming years. So with that, fire away.
There are still 2 guys who are committed to you that haven't been announced as signed yet. Do you expect those guys in this class?
We do. Just a few things that are being worked through, but we do, and potentially some more targets as well.
Thinking there's no quarterback in this class, and losing Caleb Malachi, does that suggest you'll get 2 quarterbacks in the portal or target 2?
There's a chance. Yeah, there's certainly a chance that we will. Obviously, the Malachi piece was a little unexpected, and I know some came out. I got asked a question the other day. Malachi was fantastic here. Like, he's a great kid, and I will root for him forever and ever. He's going to go make somebody a heck of a player, and I'm a Malachi Nelson fan forever. Him and his family are tremendous. Now, with him gone, it changes things, right? And now that you've got a pretty big gap in the program in terms of where Miller currently sits, being obviously kind of down the line in his career. And so we are certainly going to look at taking a younger quarterback, and we're looking at options there. It's obviously a very intriguing position for obvious reasons, and so starting to sift through some of those options, because that choice for us will be an important choice. And then so certainly the possibility right now exists that we could take as many as 2 quarterbacks in the portal, potentially 1 older one and 1 younger one.
Lincoln, you mentioned just kind of in the wake of the guys who've transferred out for the last few days. You mentioned on Monday, one kind of key point emphasis in this class was, like you said in your statement, looking for guys who are really committed to developing here at USC and understanding that things kind of take time. I mean, what do you see as kind of a common theme throughout this class, with looking for that quality in these guys and what you've seen from that?
Well, I think, you go into the process, and you evaluate these guys as students, as athletes, their potential, all that. But then when you really get into the process with them, where maybe you offer a guy and you really start to build a relationship and you pursue them, and there's competition, both ways, you start to get a sense of that, right? You start to get a sense of, like, if a guy tells you that he's going to be a USC Trojan, how committed is he to that? And the reality is, I don't know, the younger version of me, would probably have gotten so wrapped up in the competition part of it. And the reality is if you're dealing with a guy that's fluctuating or is wavering now, I mean, who's to say he's not going to do it 6 months from now? And at the end of the day, with the way that the rules have changed, the value right now of getting a player that has the ability, he fits this university and that's committed to it, like that's the best thing that you can get, right? Because if you can't, most guys are not going to come into their college career and have like the just entire fairy tale ride all the way up to the top. There's going to be challenges, there's going to be adversity, there's going to be things that they have to overcome, and I think you're trying to identify with each player, what are the chances of that happening? What are the chances that this guy is going to hang in there? Because like with the staff that we have and now continuing to finalize, like we can develop these guys. Like if they'll give us the time and put their effort into it, they will develop here at USC. With this staff, it's not a matter of if, it is going to happen. And so when you put together a staff like that, then the next piece of that is, all right, let's find guys that are committed to that entire process. And when you have that, guys are going to get better, guys are going to improve, and we're going to play the type of football that we want to play.
Again, as you're in this final stretch, especially after hiring Denton and making some of the defensive staff hires, how much did that stretch, just kind of reselling the vision or this new vision for the defense, feel maybe even like your first signing day, like last stretch, sort of kind of selling a vision again?
It's honestly these last 6 weeks, because it's been it'd be interesting, Katie, we got to look it up. I don't know if the teams ever went 6 weeks in between playing a game in college football history. We might have the biggest gap ever. And this entire stretch has felt, not completely, because obviously there's a lot of parts of the program that are healthy and doing well and continuing to rise, but certainly with all the changes defensively, there's a part of me that has felt that way, because a lot of it is brand new, and in some ways, it's certainly in some ways, a lot of ways starting over. And but there's a lot of excitement with that, and I think you could see with some of the prospects that committed to us later in this process. Guys that were committed to play some pretty good schools, guys that we were in competition with some really good schools. Guys see, they see what Dan has done. They see what Matt Ince has done. They see what Doug's done. And I think for a lot of people, you can lay out a vision, but when you start to add people that are clearly at the top of their game and some of the best coaches in the country, it sends a message to people. It sends a message to recruits. I mean, to think, when we started looking at this defensive staff, that we'd be able to add 3 guys of that caliber with where they're at in their careers, all in the same staff, probably would have seemed like a little bit of a pipe dream, honestly. And, now they're here. And I think it sends a message to so many people that they see what we're building, they believe in it, they know they can come be a big part of it. And you've seen the recruits follow, and there's been great response from the guys in this class. You see the way we closed, especially on the defensive front, was really, really important. And then I think obviously looking forward at the future classes, people take notice, and so that's exciting. You see the belief, and now it's time to go put it into action.
Coach, you've certainly had some success in recruiting against Oregon, but in the last few cycles when it's been USC against Oregon, Oregon's been able to take some guys who USC was interested in. How do you close the gap with them?
Yeah, I mean that's a regional team that you're going to battle with. Certainly that's part of it. We've had our fair share of battles with them. There's some of the ones that have come down to the end here in the last few years. Guys has obviously went the other direction. We've had a lot of them that did not go to the end that are now on our roster. So yeah, I mean there's been some back and forth, and they've got a good program. They're going to get some good players. We've got a good program. We're going to get some good players too. So for us, it's not. USC doesn't really close the gap on anyone. I don't ever feel that way. For us, it's us trying to become the very best that we can and getting our program back to the level that we expect it to be, and that's our approach in everything that we do.
With those late defensive additions, were those guys that Danton brought to the table, or guys that were already at the top of your board? How did that come together?
Yeah, a little bit of both. We had a few that I give our personnel staff a lot of credit, because in the wake of some of the defensive transition, you've got some people in your program that have got to really step up and kind of fill in the void. And I give our personnel staff a lot of credit. They were able to really start to look into some of the body types that we wanted, some of the areas that we needed to address. I'm able to have some early conversations with Coach Lynn and the other coaches about where we felt like we needed to head from a personnel standpoint. We were able to identify some guys and get on them quickly. And like a lot of people, once they came out here and saw it, and once they got a chance to have a feel for this university as a whole and for what we're building and the changes we're making defensively, a lot of these guys became Trojans. And so a lot of credit to a lot of people. Coach Lynn's been phenomenal, up to this point. Being able to get into some of the homes with him and being able to spend a little time with him on the road was great. And he's got a great way about him. And when you look at the success he's had, both obviously at the NFL level and at the collegiate level, he walks in and commands a lot of respect, and does it in a very humble way, that in a very genuine way that I think people are able to see and relate to, and I think that's very important.
Lincoln, what do you feel like you're adding up front? Just kind of strengths, traits, characteristics of the guys you signed there, defensive front. Yeah,
large human beings, large human beings, and people that are very, very tough to move, and that are good at moving other people. And so yeah, I think. Yeah, you just look at the size across the board with these guys. I mean, of course, all linemen that come into any program are going to have to develop, right? There's no question. But when the starting point is that much higher, it increases the ceiling and increases these guys' opportunities to be able to impact us sooner rather than later. And I mean, really the defensive front, I think, really has that. And that piece is exciting. I mean, you look at, you start to look at some of the measurables on these guys like Cam Fountain, and like Jade, like Carlon, like these guys are, these are big dudes, and these are guys that are really athletic. These are guys that fit the way that we want to play defensively. So that starting point is that's what you want to look like coming in the door. And then you take them, you develop them. You feel like you've ID'd kids that really are in this for the long haul and really are fully committed to this, and the combination obviously gets you pretty excited. And then I feel the same way a lot about the offensive front. This is now 2 years in a row that we've been able to add some really good pieces on both of them, and that's, again, kind of back to the previous comment, that's why a lot of the excitement for us leading into this bowl game is like so many of those guys are going to get their shot now. And like, you guys haven't seen them all yet. You may have seen them warm up or play in a spring game. We get to see them, every day. And a lot of these guys have been on scout teams doing this and that. And all of a sudden now they're getting this opportunity, and you look up and you're like, oh wow, this guy's ready to play, and you're pretty excited about it. So we've got to keep stacking it. And that's that's how you go from, we've been, the goal in the beginning was get this thing competitive, put ourselves in the position to win in the early years. We've done that. Now it's time to take the next step to becoming dominant, and where you go separate in these games, and you don't have quite as many close ones, or not as many that come down to one play here, one play there. And that's the next step for our program. And the number one way you get that is by consistently being good on these fronts. And today was a great step in the right direction.
Is there a guy on offense and defense that maybe guys who weren't highly ranked, maybe guys we didn't really talk about a whole lot during the recruiting process that are really intriguing to you, and what are their traits that stood out to you?
Oh man, who would I say? Defensively, Desmond comes to mind. Defensively, we thought he was still very heavily recruited, but in some ways I thought undervalued a lot in the recruiting piece. And what happens, and you guys see it, and obviously you guys cover this and see it yourselves, is the guys that get a lot of offers or make a name for themselves as a freshman or a sophomore earlier in their high school career. So many of these guys just kind of ride on that reputation all the way through, but when you go back and really study the tape, yeah, they were good then, but what did they do from like the sophomore to the senior year? And then there's so many of the guys, for whatever reason, that are late bloomers, but then you go look at their senior tape, and their senior tape's better than a lot of guys that the outside world would say, well, they're ranked higher than this guy. And Desmond was one of those guys that we certainly felt that way about. We felt like he was an absolute, I don't know, steal's not the right word because he was still very heavily recruited, but we were really, really excited about him. That is one of the first ones that comes to my mind. Lorenzo Cowan comes to mind there. Getting Zoe today was a great get. His athleticism and what he brings off the edge. I think the offensive line, we signed Lolo here late, that's we think he's going to have a little bit of development to do, but certainly you look at his ceiling and what it can be is very exciting. We thought Mekhi Sano was one of the best offensive linemen that we saw anywhere. Hayden Treater I put in that category as well. Guys that were really good players early in their high school career, but by the end became dominant players, and you could really kind of see that arc. And then certainly, you pair those guys up with a lot of guys that were very highly recruited from an early stage. So there's probably a few more that should fit in that category, honestly. Yeah, you're right. And honestly, going through this year after year, it's funny, you look back on some of the best players that I've been able to coach, and a lot of them actually fell in that category. Or guys that just climbed, and by the end of their high school career, they were really, really good and maybe under the radar. And you get them here, and everybody's like, who the heck is this guy? And I think we got a few that are certainly going to fit in that category.
What stands out? What do you like about Lolo?
Well, he's played very little football. Very little football. Maybe the least amount of football of any player I've ever signed. But then you turn on the tape from beginning of the year to end of the year, you see how he moves. You see some of the things, because playing offensive line it's not a really natural thing for most people. It takes a lot, and so to see some of the natural movements and some of the things he already does well, considering he's really only played the game for less than a year, it's pretty remarkable. Then you see the size and the athleticism, and then for us, it's, you know, anytime you take a guy like that you know is going to have some real development, to be able to be ready to play at this level, it's, you get to know the kid. Is he bought in? Is it his work ethic? How determined is he? And at every step of the way, you know, we felt an intense desire by him to be great. And you combine him with one of the best offensive line coaches in the country, that's a pretty exciting pair.
Let's do one more. The college football landscape is just changing, it seems almost daily. How have you seen over the last year the NIL portion of recruiting kind of change things, and then also with you guys and your situation and how that's developed at USC, the NIL piece?
Yeah, it's, you know, every year it evolves. You know, so now it's, you know, at the beginning when I first got here, it was obviously very, very new. Now these guys and their families have seen it unfold over the last few years as they prepared for, you know, their son or their child obviously to be recruited. These players have seen it with guys in their school, or as they followed signing days, you know, leading up to their own. It still comes back, I think, to, you know, every family's different. Every situation's different. Every person places different value on, you know, what an NIL contract looks like versus what's an education worth versus what's going to the best place for your development or coming and playing in a market like in LA. I mean, everybody views those things differently. And I think, you know, the NIL is certainly, listen, it's a factor. It's one of those things, if you don't have a competitive NIL program, you're going to have no shot to be competitive. The flip side of it is you're certainly trying to find people that are not overly fixated on it, so much to the point that it takes away from all of the main reasons that you would come to college and play college football in the first place. And so it's certainly a fine line in terms of, you know, of our evaluation, and it's certainly a fine line in terms of it, I think, for families as you're trying to make the right decision and one that you're proud of and that you don't regret down the line. And so yeah, absolutely, it's shifted. It's a part of every recruitment in some form or fashion. Some people it's a very small thing. Some people it's a very big thing, and certainly to each their own. I think like our program, our NIL program continues to climb. You know, the House of Victory has done a great job. It's been, you know, really now in existence for, I think, 8 months, and has been largely very, very positive and appreciative to all the people there that have worked so hard to improve it. And it's just continuing to climb. It's in a way better place than it was, you know, 6 months ago, and 6 months from now, I think it's going to continue to climb. And as all Trojans, listen, we've all got to, you know, we've all got to continue to invest in this. We've all got to continue to support it because it is a huge piece of this, and certainly you're not going to be a national championship level program without it.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay, if they've got a few more too, I got a few. Yeah, fire away.
Despite all the challenges that you did have, you know, after the year of the defensive performance this year, Roy Manning was still able to sign two of the best players that, you know, that I saw going out on the recruiting trail. And what goes into being able to, you know, get those guys committed in June and weather that storm until now?
Yeah, I give Coach Manning a lot of credit. You know, he's one of the better recruiters that I've been around, and it's the reason he is because he's very genuine and very honest and a really relationship-oriented person, and it's that great experience. And so, no question to go get you know two of our I agree, two of our favorite players in the class. You know, with Cam and with Elijah. I mean, a tremendous job by him. He, go get two guys across the country, two guys that a lot of people really wanted to sign. I think the key with those one is, first, and give him a lot of credit, identifying, two kids and two families that were, going back to the previous question, like about NIL and all the different things going on in college football. Like, these were two kids and two families that are like about the right things, like all the way. Like, I mean, just, the process was as you'd expect it would be. It was competitive. They made their decision. They never looked back. They never wavered, not for 1 second. And I give credit to those two kids, to their parents, I give credit to Roy and the relationships that he's established, and we feel like those are two future difference makers, and Roy certainly deserves a ton of credit for that.
I know your rankings differ from what maybe the cleaning services have. I think that fans have some concern or question about the number of local guys who are in the top 20 in the state that ended up here. What's your message to them about local recruiting?
Well, as I told you guys, one of the things when I came in here was, they brought me and us here for a reason, right? And so you go take a deep dive into, all right, what hasn't quite clicked in the previous years, and we really studied that. And I came here and I saw a roster full of California kids, full of them. And to me, we have to do a great job in the state. And I know you've heard me say this, but we have to get the right guys. Like I can come stand up here on a day today and say, oh, we signed 18 guys from the state of California. Everybody's, the notion on signing days, you're like, oh my gosh, they killed it in California and they did great. And the reality is you're gonna get defined by what you do in the fall, not what you do on this day. And that's how these classes come together, is getting the right people, the right guys in terms of their investment level in this program. And the other thing that certainly has shifted too is people gotta realize we're not in the Pac-12 anymore. Those days are over. Look where we're playing. Look at the competition that we're playing. Look where the majority of our conference lies. And that along with, there's just a lot of changes in college football in general where, no state of players is just staying home like they used to. And so all of those things are a little bit different. Now, that is not me saying that Southern California is not a priority. Hell yeah, it's a priority. Absolutely, it's a priority. It will always be. It's the one state that our coaches have an area to recruit. Every single coach on our staff does. Every single person on our staff is involved in recruiting this state. But we are gonna make sure that we're signing the right guys out of California. We're not just gonna go take them just because they're in a home state. It needs to be the right guys. It needs to be the guys that are invested. And we've got to continue to invest and pour into this state. Some years you're gonna get a few more than others. That's just the nature of it, but it will always be priority number one for us in terms of, you look at the map and where do you have to do great? Absolutely. But it's never gonna surpass getting the right people in here, never.
How does what you change, body type wise, measurables wise, defensively, how does that evolve?
Well, I think it's been great for him to obviously, got a chance to coach against us in the last game, or our last game, and then for him to be able to be here at practice, and to see some of these body types and see what we have, actually be out there on the grass with these guys has been a real advantage. And yeah, I think we look at, some of the things that certainly they did at UCLA, some of the things that he had done in the NFL, and you start to put together a plan of what that can be here, and what we envision, both with what we have now and developing it, what we know that we can bring in and add to that, and then how do you get a great defensive front out of it. And one of the things I loved about him was how multiple that he's shown the ability to be at on the front, and being able to take different skill sets and make it work at a high level. And again, you look at what was probably the best front in college football last year from a production standpoint. And so it's been fun going through that process. I think we were, as I told you guys, one of the non-negotiables for me in the defensive coordinator hire was somebody that wanted to play bigger on the defensive front and shared that vision, and we certainly have. And I think have so far really been in lockstep about the guys that we're going to go after, even some of these guys certainly that signed today, some of the body types that we're going to go after, on top of how we're going to develop the guys that are already in the program. So it's exciting to feel that alignment and progress already.
In terms of the transition to Big Ten, how much do you feel like that just colored this entire recruiting process? And moving forward, what positions maybe do you feel like you'd like to focus on ahead of that transition?
Well, I honestly think it impacted more where we signed the guys from than actually like the body types or the qualities of who we signed. We came here to win national championships. Like, in the definition of winning a national championship, you got to beat everybody in some form or fashion. And so our mindset has never been, get guys to win the Pac-12 or get guys to win the Big Ten. Our mindset is getting guys to go make runs at winning the national championship. And I think this was something that we felt like some of these areas that we addressed were what we felt like we had to improve on to continue the climb to that. And so I know a lot gets made of the Big Ten transition and all of that, and certainly, you're going to play more teams in our league, certainly obviously than any others, but at the same time, if you're trying to, if those are your goals and that's what you're climbing to, like, there's not really anything higher than that. And so that's our expectations, that's our mindset, and as we build this, I do think it is certainly the impact on where we're signing these kids from, and kind of the way that played out was even maybe a little, the impact was a little heavier, a little stronger this early on before we've ever even played a Big Ten game than maybe I anticipated. I mean, you get in the flow and you kind of start going with it, and there was just a lot of interest, and then a lot of the best players that we signed were from all, kind of all over the country, and several kind of in that part of the country that the Big Ten, typically obviously does business. So yeah, I think it impacted that more, but the goal in terms of what we're building is about one thing. That's winning the whole thing.
DJ Lagway.
We talked a lot about just kind of the size in general, but a lot of the skill guys were key contributors from this last year moving on. Get Ryan Pelham today. I mean, in general though, kind of looking at the young guys on this roster, the skill positions, how confident are you in the returners in the recruiting class this year, and do you anticipate maybe trying to bring in some transfers at running back and wide receiver with that?
Yeah, I mean, the offensive skill, we'll have to bring in a few guys. The talent there that we have right now is really, really, really good, and about as good as you'll find. We'll need to add a few more guys to get to the numbers that we want to play at next season. But I think that'll be a very appealing position for obvious reasons. Certainly, running back is an area that we knew, certainly, especially with Marshawn going to the draft and Darwin Barlow transferring out, which we knew those were both very real possibilities. We were under the assumption that we were going to certainly be in the market for a transfer running back, and we've been aggressive there. And so excited about Quentin and Amarian and their chance to play in this game. Really excited about Brian Jackson. We targeted him a long time ago, but 3 freshmen that have limited experience. You certainly need to add an older guy or 2 into the mix, and so that's certainly been a priority as well. So yeah, the other group we hadn't talked about a lot today, but I mean the tight end group, and that's been a room that we certainly have wanted to bolster. Lake has done a great job for us this year, but it's been a room in terms of depth, especially our first 2 years offensively, that has not been one of our strengths in terms of just the amount of guys that we have. And I think that's starting to shift, which is a great thing, because it allows you to be a little more multiple in how you play. Those guys are typically impactful guys on special teams as well. So that's another room I think that's going to really be bolstered with the guys we signed today, and obviously Walker coming in here pretty soon as well. So rooms are good. We're going to have to add a couple of pieces, but there's a lot of good players in those rooms right now.
We'll wrap it up with Scott.
DJ Lagway was somebody that you recruited, and he ultimately signed with Florida, but there was a lot of reports that you were making a late run at him. Was more accurate?
Yeah, I don't think I could talk about anybody that we didn't sign just from a rules standpoint, but okay. Yeah, we're gonna, we're not moving too fast on this. Obviously the Malachi thing was a surprise to us, and who we take as that young quarterback is an important decision for this program. It's really important, and there's so many options. If you getting somebody in this class or looking into the portal for somebody that's certainly on the younger end of it, maybe pretty early on in their career. But you got to get the right one, because the person that takes this could be in a pretty unique position pretty quick, a very advantageous position very quick, and so it's certainly important. So I understand the timing of it, but also understand, like, we're going to get a good quarterback. We got to have the patience to make sure that we are able to do full evaluations and that we feel very, very comfortable with whoever that person is.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.